Welcome, panel. How are we? We'll kick off with the latest from Donald Trump. He's been talking about Gaza again during a meeting with the King of Jordan. Jordan is one of the countries he wants to take in Palestinian refugees, so the US can turn Gaza into what he describes as the Riviera of the Middle East. And now Trump has insisted he won't need to buy Gaza because he can just take it.
We're not going to buy anything. We're going to have it, and we're going to keep it, and we're going to make sure that there's going to be peace, and there's not going to be any problem, and nobody's going to question it. And we'll have lots of good things built there, including hotels and office buildings and housing and other things. And we'll make that site into what it should be.
Dawn, I'm going to go to you first on this one.
Thanks.
Oh. Well?
I honestly, I have no idea. The thing is with Donald Trump, he says a lot of things for effect. A lot of things Donald Trump says never actually happen. So how much of this will actually come to pass is another matter. But you can't just go and take bits of the globe.
Now, before we go OMG to all of this, as people are, just to be clear, I suspect what he's doing, and this is no defence of it, right, is to say, look, the place is absolutely destroyed, right? It's dangerous for people to go back there. At some point, doing the same thing over and over again, as his press secretary said, expecting a different outcome is madness. People are going to go back. They're going to be in the worst possible human situation. It's going to radicalise the people who are there. The only way you bring peace, like, for example, partially the Northern Ireland model, is to build a place and make it worth living in so that people have got economic value, things to keep as opposed to fighting each other. Now, I'm doing that work on behalf of Trump to at least partially understand it. Otherwise, it feels, to say the least, a little bit bonkers.
I know, but to use your example, what happened with the people of Northern Ireland, you know, with all the bombing and the destruction, they weren't all shipped over here to the mainland. They stayed there in the province and the building was done around them. And the people of Palestine, at least those people who purport to speak for them, say that's what they want to do. And look at the pressure he was putting on King Abdullah of Jordan. He was sitting there looking like a little boy being scolded as opposed to a monarch of a country. They've taken in more than 3.5 million Palestinians already from 1948, during the creation of the State of Israel, through to now. So that's more than half their population. And how can they be expected to take another 1 million people in what would be, if it happens in the way Trump has explained it, the very definition of ethnic cleansing?
You're difficult to go on, sorry.
As I say, the thing is with this story, though, is Trump has changed his tune. Initially, it sounded completely like ethnic cleansing. Then he backtracked a bit and said, yeah, but the people can go back to the country once we have rebuilt it. Yep. Now, which of those...
But now... he's saying they can't go back.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. He changed his tune depending on which way the wind's blowing. We know that because Trump likes rhetoric. If they go in and they rebuild that country and it becomes a place that people want to live and work, and the people that were there go back and live in that place, then that surely cannot be a bad thing.
Well, so at some point they're going to need something similar to like Berlin after what, some sort of Marshall Plan, right? Some sort of big global economic effort. And in the meantime, the Palestinian people are going to have to be supported. Now, I say that with a very big throat clear and intake of breath, because we're sitting here at a moment now where this fragile ceasefire may not hold over the weekend.
And one of the reasons why it may not hold is the Hamas people are probably thinking, well, if we do adhere to the initial agreement and release more hostages on Saturday, well, what happens with stage 2? Given that Trump has already said, you guys are not going to stay there. Not with Netanyahu's mendaciousness notwithstanding, because I know a lot of people who do not trust Netanyahu, both Jewish Israelis and non-Jewish people, do not trust Netanyahu and the people around him.
The curious thing, I suspect, to a lot of American voters is that this is a president who voted in a president on the basis of America first. And here he is getting engaged directly in not just a foreign entanglement, but actually, well, either boots on the ground or certainly scaffolding there and effectively annexing a place. It feels, well, out of kilter with what he promised the American public. But later, it was not the president, but his closest ally, at least one of them, Elon Musk, who took centre stage. He took questions in the Oval Office for the first time since he was appointed to slash government spending, with Trump signing an executive order to give him more authority. And this is his response when he was accused of a hostile takeover of the US government. Have a look.
The people voted for major government reform. There should be no doubt about that. That was on the campaign. The president spoke about that at every rally. The people voted for major government reform, and that's what the people are going to get.
Now, here it is. This is the recent Time magazine cover showing Musk behind the president's desk. It looks like it's coming true. Dawn, has there been a hostile takeover by Elon Musk?
At the moment, there's a big bromance going on, is there? I mean, they really do sort of like, you know, you can see the way they are dealing with one another at the moment. It is a bromance. However, two men with egos their size, you can't carry on working the way they are. At some point, something is going to have to snap. Now, as a journalist, covering American politics has always been interesting. But at the moment, it is absolutely fascinating. It's very, very exciting. And it'd be very interesting to see what happens when this bromance goes wrong and who is going to come out the victor.
Yeah, I mean, that picture, the front cover of Time magazine, contrasts with the one a few weeks ago when Trump was named Person of the Year, and he will not like that one little bit, and that's going to accelerate the day when we're going to see the collapse of this bromance, because as soon as what Elon Musk is doing begins to affect Trump voters, that's when Trump's going to say enough already.
You know, on the one hand, he's not been elected, right, by the public. He's not been confirmed by the Senate, right? He's just an appointee. On the other hand, this is entirely what he promised to do during the course of the election. Set up DOGE, the Department of Government
Efficiency.
Yes.
and to go through line by line and say that this is government waste, this is corruption. And here's the thing, whether you like it or not, whether you think it might be not exactly democratic, it is wildly popular, Henry.
Well, we say it's wildly popular. Perhaps the destruction of USAID, which disperses about $40 billion every year to some of the poorest people in the world, AIDS prevention, TB prevention, etc., might be popular in some of the red states. But dismantling Veterans Affairs, dismantling Medicaid, stopping federal workers from getting their money, that will not be popular. And increasing tariffs to increase the prices of goods in the shops, that will not be popular when it lands.
Dawn?
The thing is with the USAID, I mean, yes, it was doing a lot of good things, but there was also a lot of money mysteriously going missing. There were people who were on a certain salary who suddenly ended up earning loads of money from somewhere. Where was this money coming from? So, yes, I would say it needs looking at.
Right, corruption in many places, and it seems that, without question, I mean, that's something that any reasonable government needs to address. And meanwhile, Reform leader and Trump ally Nigel Farage highlighted examples of what he considered to be government waste as he campaigned for a version of Musk's cost-cutting drive here in the UK. Have a look at this.
The environmental impact of filmmaking using Star Wars to improve sector sustainability practices. No, I'm not even making it up. Over £200,000. When you see what they're doing in America, do you get the feeling we ought to be doing it here? This is all a complete waste of your taxpayer money. It's keeping people in jobs who don't deserve to have them. This is the first in a series of these.
Should we be doing that here?
Well, I would proceed with that with great caution. I don't think so, because beware unintended consequences. What looks great on paper, i.e. slash, for example, the Department for Education or Department for Business, these organisations of civil servants decide where taxpayers' money goes. If you collapse them and the people, for example, in the parts of the country that vote reform, realise that that money was coming from that department, it no longer comes, who are they going to blame? They're going to blame Nigel Farage in the end.
The civil service has never been bigger than it is at the moment. It is incredibly bloated. It can be cut down. And at the moment, we have
the question is, what do we cut?
Well, this is what it needs looking at. So that's why you do need someone that is going to look at it, someone like an Elon Musk character. But you do, because when you're taking money away from pensioners who can ill afford it, when you're telling farmers they are all the landed gentry who've got millions of pounds worth of, and they are going to be worried about losing the land, when you're telling small businesses they've got to pay more and people are losing their jobs because of it, yes, there is a lot of waste, and we are targeting the wrong people to get that money back.
I'm not sure, because the amounts of money that we need to recoup in order to fund our public services is absolutely huge. We all expect Swedish-style services, but we want to pay American levels of tax.
Well, here's the thing, Henry. Why don't we stop giving inflation-busting pay rises to anyone that asks for it, i.e. the unions?
Well, on that note...